This is a new presentation. I haven't done this one. I've done a lot of, oh, thank you. How's that? Can everybody hear me? Yep. Okay. I've done a lot of like 100, 101 type level presentations on marketing and community and open source, and this is a new one. I want to go a little deeper. I want to give people something that they can take back or maybe recognize for themselves and take back into their organization. So these are not going to be very accessible slides. There's going to be a lot of text, and you're probably going to get worn out looking at them. That QR code there goes to my online profile. If you want to grab that, you can then follow me on LinkedIn and X and Blue Sky and email if you want. But we're going to jump in here. I'm going to be talking about the non-technical activities that go into a successful open source project. And I want to start by, let's go ahead and put this on the map. And this chart here is very simplistic, right? This is not everything that goes into an open source project. And we can probably debate all day long what those three legs are, or if there's 5 legs to an open source project. But for simplicity, you have your basic governance, your oversight and leadership and licensing and all this legal stuff, and you have your technical side of your open source project, which is your roadmap and infrastructure releases, development documentation, and then you have your advocacy and community items, which is where we start talking about messaging, branding, getting our plans for going to market, our launches, and then all of those kind of advocacy and community activities. And the reason that I'm pointing this out is because I'm only going to be focusing on that little purple box on the far right. Not that the other things aren't important, but we're going to talk about the non-technical things, not including governance, that go into a successful project. So I had the lovely benefit of being here in London over the weekend, and I was working on my presentation, and all of a sudden I looked down and I got like 50 slides, and I'm like, well, that's never going to work. So I went back and created an outline, which is actually the first thing I should have done, but I didn't. And I started creating an outline of the things that when I go into an organization or when I'm working with an organization, the things that I think about as we're putting together our advocacy, marketing, and community plans. And it's this bulleted list, and it's to some extent a lot of detail, but it's also quite simplified. And then I chose just a few things that I'm going to cover in this presentation because there's only 30 minutes. So we're going to dig right in. I didn't say who I was. Oh, I'm Kim McMahon, and I work fractional outsourced marketing and community advocacy things. I used to be with the LF, I was with Cisco, and now I'm here representing the FreeBSD Foundation. So anyway, back into this. When you think about a healthy open source project, again, simplified. If we want to debate this, we can do this over a glass of wine later. But you have high quality, secure code. You have enough resources, which is a whole other thing to debate, I guess, but you have enough resources in the project, you got good documentation, you got an inclusive, diverse community that brings in more users and contributors, and that this is then a project that continues to produce quality code, it continues to grow. But, these things just don't happen by, here, do we need to go back there, Tom? Got it? Okay. These things don't happen by themselves. Right, that somebody, at some point, you got to step back and think about your strategy and your plan. And it's kind of like, you're sitting here in a car and you're dreaming of either you're at a beach or here I'm snowshoeing with my dog. And without a strategy and plan, you're going along this path, and you may luckily end up where you intended to go, but you often could just end up in a big old nasty traffic jam. So one of the first things that you should be doing with a project, and this is something that Emily talks a lot about, is the whole business strategy and the plan. And you want to do that because you want to be aligning your team. And I am saying this with a filter of, you have an open source project that is probably part of an organization. A hobbyist open source project, obviously, I guess you're aligning with your team, which may be you and your dog. But let's assume the project is coming out of an organization, which is where they mostly do come out of. But you want this business strategy and plan so that everybody kind of knows what we're doing, what we're trying to do, which will lead to that operational efficiency, which will minimize the risk that you maybe not get where you want to go on the project. So the steps, you want to be outlining the goals of your project. Like, what do you want this project to be? Do you want it to be, are you doing it so that, you're making it, getting a lot of users so that maybe somebody will go ahead and want to incorporate that into the organization? Are you doing it, because of a greater good? I mean, whatever those goals for your project, like really understand why you have this open source project. Then document the reason for the technology, the reason for the project, and that's in blue because we're going to talk about that a little more on the next slide. So you create your business case, you get your executive buy-in, you get resourcing and everything, and the benefit of doing all that is you got everybody marching in the same direction. So the reason for the project, and this is the first step that, like I'm hoping when I join an organization, if they don't have that business strategy, if they don't know what they're trying to do as an organization, I am going to work with them to help them and the rest of the leadership team come up with that business strategy. So now that we have that, I can start doing the things that I need to do in the marketing and advocacy, and that's the reason for the project, and I put product here, that's a typo, I will go ahead and fix it, that should say project. But what is the technology? What does it do? Why did you come up with this idea? Alessandro and I were talking about it. Like, why did you come up with this idea? What's missing in the market? And why your open source project? What gap is it filling? What technology gap is it filling? So you want to kind of think through that, the whole reason that you're developing the technology, and then think about your different target personas. Your user, how are they going to use it? How are your developers going to use it? How are your operations teams? How is this technology going to affect their lives? The contributors, if you want contributors to your open source project, who are those kind of contributors? What's their skill set? What's their interests, for example? And then understand their pain points that your technology is fixing for those different user personas. And what do they need to know to make a decision? As you think about promoting your open source project, what type of businesses are going to end up using that technology? Are you fitting within an overall workflow? Likely you are, but are they cloud providers? Like, what kind of businesses? Are they big oil companies? Whatever. But think about what are those organizations that are going to benefit from the technology, and then the differentiation. And this is the thing that myself as a marketer, I most need to know is, how are people doing it now? And if this technology comes in, how is it going to make their life better? Because that really helps us as marketers be able to talk about the project in the words that make a difference to the people that are making the decision on whether they're going to use the technology or not. So here we're going to get into some details on how you do it. And I have a couple quotes I pulled. I don't know how many of you all know Kendall Miller, but he shared this one with me that technical founders mistakenly believe they can build their way to market adoption, and almost all of them wait much too long before they start to sell and market, when that is what differentiates a project from a hobby to something that from a company. And Emily, as I mentioned a second ago, fundamentally, marketing is just telling the world that the thing you've made is cool and they should check it out. There are strategies that will make your efforts more effective and tactics to get better results. And then I have one last quote that if I haven't convinced you that marketing and community is important, I've probably convinced all of you because you're here, but without it, you're just another project with an idea. And I see this so often in the work that I've been doing, that technical founders, technical people love their technology and they think it will sell only on its merits. And it may, but likely will not. So The advocacy and community path. As I put together the plan for advocacy and community, and you can see I'm kind of purposely leaving out marketing. I think marketing is a form of advocacy, but we're really trying to advocate for the technology and build a community around it. And the path that we want to take our users, our contributors, our community members on is a path of awareness that it's there. Acquisition, that they've reached out and found the project and maybe downloaded it, to adopting it, that they're using it in some sort of environment, to engaging with the community, coming and talking on your different chat channels, for example, to then being your advocate. And that's what I want to be taking our community members along, is to that advocacy, because that is when I'm getting that third-party validation. And that is what is really going, that's, you know, you listen to your friend tell you that is a good product more than the company telling you that it's a good product. And this is sometimes referred to as community-led growth or product-led growth. So you kind of may have heard those terms, but for me, I break it down in open source project terms, taking the users and contributors along this journey. So, okay, we're getting back to a plan again. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a plan. And the thing, just start one. But you don't have to start one and have all those categories I had in that first slide, all those 20 things. Just start your plan. It doesn't have to be perfect or perfectly fully filled out, but document the things that you think are going to be most impactful to your users. Because remember, we already talked about who our targeted users and contributors are. What's going to be the most impactful? Is it going to be that you go to meetups because that's where they go? Then that's the part of the plan that you should start with. But as you're doing that, and I'm not going to get into metrics and KPIs in this talk. I have in other talks. But be prepared with thinking, how will you know what success is? You want to have some sort of idea of what success looks like. I went to 3 events and I got 2 new users. That's a success metric or a KPI that you can track. Because then if you're tracking them, then you know if you're not succeeding, you can then go back and look at why you're not. Like, is it because you went to the wrong events? Is it because maybe you didn't know your right user, for example? So think about something that's going to be a measure that's going to give you insight into if your efforts were effective. Execute on it, and then just continue updating the plan. And after you do a couple different of these advocacy and community things, you're going to end up with a whole full plan. Now, one of those elements that I want to talk about is project launches, because in my experience, the technical people, the engineers, they know what they need to do to get the project out the door. They got all that. What they do is they totally forget to tell me. And all of a sudden, I know that I have a release 14 of a new operating system coming out, a major release, and nobody told me, and it's out the door on Friday. So that creates a lot of angst and stress on me. So one of the first things I really try to do is educate the team on the importance of working together for project launches. And this is not just me. I mean, everybody has a role in this. Product management has a role if you're in a company. Your engineers have a role, your doc team. Everybody has a role, and each project, and I'm not getting into this at all. There's plenty of tools out there that tell you from a technical standpoint what you need to do for a successful project launch from an engineering side. But you bring them all together, and like it or not, me in marketing, I'm working on engineering's timeline. But I also want to educate engineering because they need to understand what my timelines are. But then I need to earn their respect and their trust by understanding their timelines and not saying something before they're ready. And that I can't stress that enough, because every engineer is not going to want to tell me something because they're afraid that I'm going to go out in the market and tell everybody that this is what's going in that release when they're not even sure they're done with it. And so we really need to respect that. And when you build that trust, then they're going to tell me that we're really trying hard to get this in this release, and this is what this feature is, and it's really important. And then if it makes it, I'm ready to talk about it. I have no idea how much time I have left. I know it's a long presentation, so this is one of the things that I prepare in my plans, giving you kind of an example, is, break them down between major releases, minor releases, and update security releases. I do it quite simply. A major release, obviously a brand new project that you're launching or new features, and I try to share with the team, this is the timeline, that if we have a major release and it's complicated, I need that 4 months ahead of that release to start talking to you about what you're thinking of putting in that release so that I can prepare all the different things that I want to advocate for it, build the community around it, make sure that we're getting awareness for it. With a minor release, my timeline's typically a month, and with a patch, update, security release, 1 to 3 days. If it's a really bad security release, that's how much time I have? Okay. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been talking for 15 minutes. I got 7 more. Okay, but if you have a patch release, it's, you're lucky if you get a day, but if it's a bad security release. So just to give you a little example there. And another little example, I kind of prepare out a chart, kind of let the team know that if it's a major release, I'm going to want to do an announcement. So I do intend to go ahead and put together this chart so that they have an idea of the things that I'm thinking about as I do a release. So again, kind of outline these activities. Doesn't have to be perfect or fully filled out. Bring the cross-functional team together. And you need to lead the team on doing these, because when it's not announced, it all ends up flowing downhill down to the advocacy team. Execute, and then, as I mentioned, add it into your template. So I want to talk about events as another one of the advocacy tools. And events are part of an overall integrated plan. And we don't just go to an event and then not do anything else. We do go to an event, and there's all kinds of other things. There's marketing, and there's email, and there's social, and there's communications. I'm not really getting into all that. But you got your in-person online events, you got large and small events, you got global and regional events, you got all kinds of different events. And you think about, as you're putting together this event plan, it's what is going to take, coming back to that targeted user, along that journey where I can get them over into advocacy. And at events, so this again, kind of an informational slide for all of you to take back. You're doing one of these things. You're doing one or many of these things at that event. And think about what it is you want at those events and write that down and make sure that you and your leadership and your team knows that these are the things that you want to be doing at that event. And so, again, I have a chart that I fill out and sharing with you an example that you can take back. When I start thinking about our events, I try to outline our tiered events. Tiered events will maybe be an event that our organization is running. Tier 2 is a large third-party event. And then the kinds of activities that we typically would do at those events. And that way, when somebody comes, you have somebody on the team come and say, hey, I want to go to event XYZ. You can say, well, that is a Tier 3 event, and this is what we typically do. Is that what you wanted to accomplish at that event? So it really helps bring the team together and makes them feel like they're part of your planning. And then the last section of this is, okay, so that was it on events. We're done with events, we're done with marketing stuff. Now we're going to go into community engagement. And the pillars of community engagement are the content, the conversations, the engagement, and rewards. And I have simplified this down quite again, but when you're looking at how you want to get your community to engage with you, the first thing you have to do is have some nice high-value content, educational content, and that you're sharing consistently out wherever you're sharing it, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's X, whether it's your blog, YouTube, Twitch, whatever, that you're consistently sharing out this high-value content so the community comes to know that you are going to be giving them something of value, something that they're going to learn from about your project. A couple examples there. And then the next step you want are the conversations. So you want to look at across your community how you can have those different conversations. And examples are Ask Me Anythings. You can do polls and surveys on your Discord or your Slack, asking questions, gathering product feedback at events. Like, where are you going to have those conversations, and what kind of things can you talk about? So I gave you a couple examples there. The third pillar is engagement and engaging with them. And I tell you, I'm the worst at this. I've been doing this forever, but welcoming new members to the community, I never think about going out and saying hi and welcoming them in. Now, at an event, I welcome new people into the community all the time, but online, I always forget. But don't forget to do that one. Hold those community meetings. Go out there on social and look for content that's not yours and reshare and like that content. Look out on forums and chat and answer those questions. So engage with them. Have those conversations going on. And then the last pillar is your rewards. Your intrinsic rewards, community member recognition, and your extrinsic rewards stuff. And I met with, at this event alone, I met with a handful of users of FreeBSD, and they want to talk to me on video and tell me about how they found out about the project and how they're using it and why they love it, because they want that recognition that they love the operating system. And I have found that to be, that's one of the best rewards, is just thanking somebody in the community for interacting with your project and helping. So, know your audience. You got to meet your audience where they are. So, there's some social forums that I won't go on, but there may be some social forums I don't want to go on, but that's where my audience is. So I am still on there. Actually wrote a blog about that. But be present, be responsive, foster and strive for inclusivity. And I'm going to go long because I really want to point this one out, that when I say strive for inclusivity, that means reach out and grab somebody in your community that maybe isn't stepping up, but you know that they want to. And you know that they would be a valuable member. So we need to do that to be making sure that we're not seeing the same old faces in the community. And make it easy. And with thoughtful engagement, you will be moving on over into the advocates. Wait, there we go. And that's it. 22 minutes.